Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Versus podcast episode. This is Versus, a scripture and sports podcast with Slaton Huish. I am your host, Slaton Huish. I want to thank you for tuning back in. If you're confused about what this podcast is about, feel free to go back to the very first video uploaded on this channel titled Prologue. Tonight we are welcomed by a returning guest to talk shop with us tonight. We've got Stockton Huish back, my older brother, here to talk to us about some Cardinals football. Stockton, welcome back to Versus.
Thanks for having me again. It's fun to be back.
Yeah, so I gotta ask, just right off the bat, for those who are watching this on YouTube and are watching the visual here, what's on your shirt?
Old Joey B, my favorite player in professional football, right there.
Joey Burr, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's the story behind the shirt for the viewers who don't know? What's the story behind the shirt? Are you a big Joe Burrow guy? From what I understand, your wife's a big anti-Joe Burrow girl, so how did the shirt come to be?
My wife is not a huge fan of the shirt. I'll just say that. She's a Patrick Mahomes Chiefs fan, so, I mean, she didn't like it. She obviously didn't get it for me. She would never buy this shirt for me. I actually don't know who sent this shirt to me. I still haven't figured it out. So I actually came from my parents' house earlier tonight, and I was asking around if anybody knew who got it for me, and nobody had an idea. So I don't know where it came from. It came up on our doorstep earlier this week. So I saw it, was like, I may as well keep it.
And if it's like your size and everything?
Fits perfect. Yeah.
Do you have any suspicions on who ordered the shirt for you? It wasn't me. I'll just out myself. It was not me.
I thought it was either you. I thought it could have been Tillman. I thought it could have been one of my friends that lives up in Utah, but it's none of those three. So I have no idea, but I'll keep the shirt. If the person who got me the shirt is watching this, thank you for the shirt. I love it.
Yes.
And you made my wife a little upset by getting it. So.
Hey, but that's okay. It's friendly banter. It's not something that truly.
Let me show the bottom too. Here, it's got Joe Burr.
Yeah, Joe Burr. He's a charismatic cat. That's what he is. So
let me
just
awesome. Say real quick, he would have won the MVP. He would win the MVP this year if he had a defense. So I'm just putting it out there right now. But anyway, it's not about the Bengals and Joe Burrow.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate the story. I haven't really heard the full story. And I'm sure our viewers appreciated that. So, yeah, so like Stockton said, we're not here to talk about Joey B. We're not here to talk about the Bengals. We're talking about the Cardinals. There's a lot of talk football this weekend in the Phoenix area. We have a big game tomorrow in Tempe between Arizona State and BYU. That is basically a Big 12 elimination game. But not to overshadow that, there's also significant football game being played at State Farm Stadium on Sunday between the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. Now, this is important because the Cardinals right now are in first place at 6-4, but basically everybody in the NFC West is floating at 500. And so another win here by the Cardinals would give them a 1.5 game buffer between the Seahawks with the tiebreaker. With that in mind, Stockton, how important is this game this weekend? And should we be talking about it more?
It's massive. For me personally, if you can get to 3-0 in the division, you're in a good spot because the 49ers are in trouble as far as the division goes. And with the news of Brock Purdy not playing this weekend, they're in deep crap because they play the Packers this weekend. And if that Brock Purdy injury lingers, they're not going to win very many more games. The Rams have a really tough game against the Eagles this week too. So, I mean, the teams that are below us are in a deep hole too, like especially if they both lose. So if we can beat the Seahawks, we'll be up 2 games on all of them with tie breaks against all of them. Now, obviously, they'll each play one more time. But this is a huge game. I mean, 2 of the next 3 weeks, they play the Seahawks. So if you can sweep those 2 games, you're going to put yourself in a really good spot. But if they win this weekend, they'll be in a really good spot anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting team. You've watched a lot more NFL this year than I have, just with the cable restrictions I've got here in Utah, only being able to watch like one team, and I don't want to watch the Broncos. Have you been able to watch a little bit of Seattle, and do you feel like that's a fair assessment? Do you think Seattle is the definition of mid, or do you think there's more to them than that?
I actually think there's a little more to them than that. I've watched 3 games of theirs already because they're on TV here in Arizona quite a bit. I just watched them play against the 49ers last week, actually. And their defense is better than people give them credit for. They've got a lot of young guys on the defense that fly around. I really like their corners. So our wide receivers are going to have a test on Sunday. Yeah, I think the Seahawks offense, obviously, they've got big names at receiver, but people forget about Kenneth Walker in the run game. So they got to be able to, the Cardinals got to do a good job of stopping the run, and we got to limit. I think DK is going to get his. I think the job is going to be limiting the others because Tyler Lockett somehow always seems to beat the Cardinals every time we play them. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba has been on a tear lately. And so stopping Lockett and Njigba are going to be a big problem. That's going to be one of our biggest tests on Sunday. I think the Seahawks are actually pretty good.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. I agree. I think if you're looking at position battles, the one that the Cardinals are probably going to lose is the Cardinal cornerbacks, the Cardinal secondary up against the Seahawk receivers. It's definitely going to be a test for the Cardinal secondary, who have been playing better than advertised. I'd say the whole defense is playing better than advertised. But yeah, I agree. It's going to be a big game. You kind of mentioned it. Stopping Kenneth Walker is a key to success. Do you think on the offensive side of the ball, do you think there's something the Cardinals offense needs to continue to do to put themselves in a situation where they come out with the victory on Sunday?
I think that the Cardinals need to stick to their identity. Their identity all year has been running the football. And James Conner is a beast. And historically, James Conner plays really well against the Seahawks. And I think their defensive line can be had. And the way Arizona's complex run scheme works really bodes well for James Conner against the Seahawks defensive line. So I think James Conner is going to be a really important piece this weekend. But on the outside, they struggle to cover tight ends. I think Trey McBride's going to have a big day. Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, they may not have the biggest day this weekend, but I expect Connor and McBride to have big games.
So is that a key to success for you? Is run game needs to be established, and somebody, whether it's McBride or Harrison, somebody. A pass catcher is going to have a big game.
Yeah, I have the most trust out of all their pass catchers in Trey McBride. He's the most proven to me, so I'm rolling with McBride. And McBride usually gets the better matchups, so I think McBride's going to be a big key this weekend.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think establishing the run game, continuing to establish their identity as a run-first team, and then continue to put Kyler Murray in situations where he doesn't have to be Superman. The reason why Kyler Murray doesn't feel like an MVP candidate this year, but is statistically one, is because he hasn't had to make jaw-dropping plays. He has throughout the season, but what he is doing this year, he's just making smart decisions. He's patient in the pocket. He's going through his reads, and he's extending plays, and he's not turning the ball over.
For sure.
I mean, he has the second lowest interception total this year, only behind Herbo. And he's definitely improved in that category. He's extended drives. There's a reason why the Cardinals are scoring at a really high clip, and it's because they're not turning the ball over.
Yeah, and the Cardinals' red zone percentage is really good. I mean, I think it's top 5 in the NFL, and that's where the money's made, is in the red zone. That's why the Cardinals have been winning a lot of games, is because the Cardinals have been keeping their opponents out of the end zone when they get in the red zone, and the Cardinals have been getting in the end zone when they get in the red zone. So, I mean, yeah, red zone offense and defense is a massive key in any game.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, Stockton, I think that speaks to Nick Rawlis, that speaks to the players who are executing the scheme at a very high level, speaks to a bend, don't break defense. And I think that's what Cardinals fans were hoping. We knew we weren't going to be a crazy sack-heavy team. We knew we weren't probably going to cause a lot of turnovers just with the untested secondary. But if we can just hold teams inside the 20s, and that's what they've been doing very, very well. I mean, you turn on the game like, whoa, it's 20-6? Holy cow. Yeah. It's because Cardinals are getting touchdowns. Defense holding them to field goals. Kind of going back to Kyler Murray, what's impressed you this year, now that he's now had a full year under the Drew Petzing system, Jonathan Gannon tenure? What's impressed you with Kyler Murray this year?
His feet. So in the past, he would get happy feet when he's in the pocket, and it would cause him to be off target with throws. It would cause him not to see receivers. His feet, he's a lot more patient in the pocket, and it's that's how they're getting big plays downfield. He's hitting Marvin Harrison Jr., he's hitting Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, James Conner out of the backfield. He's more patient. And I think in years past, he felt like you were saying earlier, he felt like he had to make a hero ball play all the time. And now, because he's in a competent offense, he's not having to do everything all the time. And so because of that, he's been more patient this year. And he's been able to just sit back there in the pocket, deliver strikes. And that's why his interception ratio is so low too, because he's been more patient. And so I think that's the biggest thing with Kyler is his feet. And because he's been more patient, his feet have been better and he's been more accurate.
I agree. This year, I don't know how many times I've seen goes through his read one, not there, read two, not there, read three. Here comes pressure. I'm just going to turn and dunk it off to James Conner or to Trey Benson or to Amari DiMarcado. And it's like, oh my gosh, like that is like, it doesn't show big on the stat sheet. It may be only a few yards, but it's those decisions that like, okay, instead of trying to sling the Twinkie in the toaster, I'm just going to dump it off to my running back, let him go make a play out in space. And that's the maturity that I really like seeing from Kyler. Not only do I think he's matured on the field as a leader, but in the decision making, like you said. And I think that goes back to him being more patient, him understanding the system, and trusting his teammates to make plays where maybe in years past he wasn't.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's been great.
So moving forward, obviously this is a big game for the division. Like you mentioned, the Niners are down and the Rams have a tough stretch of games. The Cardinals do not. Outside of the division games, Cardinals play the Vikings, Patriots, and Panthers. They have a legit chance now at 6-4 with 7 games left to go 10-7, maybe even 11-6, and stack up some pretty big wins and exceed expectations and potentially make the postseason. What was your expectations preseason? What were you hoping for? And has that changed, and how has it changed now in Week 12?
I think at the beginning of the season, I was expecting an improvement from 4 wins. I was expecting about 7 to 9 wins going into the season and then just barely missing the playoffs. I think a 3 to 4 win increase for Jonathan Gannon would have sufficed at the beginning of the year. But now they're 6-4. They're a game up in the division with how the other teams around them are struggling. I mean, my expectations have changed to where they should win the division. I think they need to make the playoffs because if they're going to win the division, obviously they'll make the playoffs. And if they have a home playoff game, they should win that first game. I don't really care who they're playing. So for me, if they win the division, if they get past the wild card round, and if they get to the divisional round and then lose in the divisional to like the Lions, or if they were to lose to the Eagles, I wouldn't be too mad at that. I think if they got to the divisional round of the playoffs and lost in a good game, that's a great season. It really is. And especially with the lack of names on defense. Like aside from Budda Baker, there's not a lot of big names on the defense. It's been a lot of young guys stepping up, improving it. I think, yeah, divisional round of the playoffs is a good expectation to have for them.
Yeah, I agree. You recognize that the NFC West is down as bad as it's been in years. And the Cardinals somehow find themselves at the top of it. And to your point, you win the division, you're going to the postseason. The Cardinals can string together and continue to get better as the season progresses, similar to what their counterpart is doing in Tempe, a team in Arizona State who has just progressively gotten better and is still not playing their best football. I think that's what makes this Cardinals team different than in the 2021, the last team that made the postseason, was the Cardinals are starting to peak now. They're peaking Week 12, Week 13. They're only getting better. They're not even at their peak. The Cardinals in 2021 peaked at Week 12.
That's right.
And then crashed and burned because for some reason the previous regime didn't know how to make adjustments on offense. So.
This team is building, and I think next year is really going to be the year. But this year is just a very encouraging sign. So I'm proud of what the Cardinals are doing. I think Jonathan Gannon is doing a heck of a job.
Yeah. Hopefully the Cardinals pull out a good win here in Seattle and just continue to roll and give themselves enough cushion in the division where we'll see what happens. Maybe a playoff game, like you said, maybe a home playoff game. I mean, if you win the division, a home playoff game is guaranteed because you're not wild card. So that would be something. And I think this team, again, to separate from the previous regime, this team, for some reason, knows how to win at home something that the Cardinals have been really bad at over the last 5-7 years, being bad at home. And so I think, to your point, a home playoff game could help reunite the fan base.
Totally.
Bring some Cardinals fans back into the seats.
Yeah, I do too. And then real quick, Super Bowl, I'm hoping the Lions get there. That would just be awesome for the NFL if the Lions made the Super Bowl. Obviously, we want the Cardinals first, but being realistic, if it's the Lions against the Chiefs, could you imagine the Chiefs going for the first three-peat in NFL history against a team that has never even been to the Super Bowl but is really good this year? That'd just be so awesome.
That would be awesome. I'd be very happy for Dan Campbell. Like, he got clowned for being a fake tough guy and showed fake emotions. Like, no, this guy, to quote his mom, you're either going to coach football or end up in prison. He's hardwired like that. Happy for Coach Campbell. Happy for Jared Goff, who's getting a little bit of a redemption story after getting trashed out of LA for something that wasn't his fault. I'm just happy for that team, man. They got a fun group of guys over there.
And the Cardinals look a lot like the Lions did 2 years ago when they were building.
Yep.
They have the same identity, running the football, make big plays down the field, run around like crazy on defense. I think a year or two from now, we're going to be talking about the Cardinals like we do the Lions.
I sure hope so. Man. I mean, the Cardinals, I saw a stat, since their Green Bay loss in 2021, the one that broke the 7-0 streak, the game where A.J. Green didn't turn around in the end zone, the Cardinals went on to lose 36 of their next 48 games of the next 3 seasons.
Oh,
and
so bad.
Since that Green Bay game this year,
they're undefeated.
They haven't lost. They're 4-0.
About that.
So maybe all we need to do is play the Packers again in the regular season and turn the season around.
We'll see. Wouldn't mind playing them in the playoffs. We have their number in the playoffs.
That's true. Stockton, anyway, again, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you talking cards with us. And hopefully the house doesn't get too more divided as you wear that shirt more and more as the days come.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks. Again, we want to thank our guest, Stockton Huish, for joining us tonight on Versus. We also want to thank everybody for tuning in. We appreciate the support. Stay tuned for part 2 as I get together with my father, Tim Huish, our unofficial Sun Devil insider, and we talk about the very anticipated game going on Saturday in Tempe between Arizona State and BYU. So stay tuned for that.